what actually is money. See, now I'll give you an example. Say you had rupees 100 at 2010, okay, and you just did nothing. You just took that 100 rupee, kept it in the safe locker in your house, or kept it in the bureau which you have, or kept it in a purse which you just forgot. So in 2010, had you had rupees 100, okay, the value of that rupees 100 in today's terms would be, as a cash, would always be as a cash, which is 100 rupees. Had you put in a car, which is buying 100 rupee worth of car, and today's value in the car would be rupees 10. You'll understand why this car value has been depreciated to rupees 10. Had you put that in a savings account, it would have appreciated to rupees 145. Had you put in silver, gold, it would have appreciated approximately. Now, the next part is, have you put the money in equity, like stocks? Then your value would have appreciated much higher than the savings account, the interest rates in the banks, or slightly higher than the banks, other than buying gold. So your money would have worth, depending on which shares you would have bought. Say if you had bought Amazon, you would have got 2,000 rupees. If you bought Apple, you got 1,340. And if you had by chance had bought Bitcoin is only worth that time around 2 rupees actually per coin. And now you know what the value is. You would have earned actually 3 crore 40 lakhs. So the problem with cash is keeping the cash idle is not going to help you. Keeping the cash back at home, it's not going to help you, because money is depreciating. Money deflates. You lose the value of the money every day. So you need to understand what is the difference between currency and money. Does anyone know? Say money is holding a, currency is holding a, random same or different? Is it going to be same or different? What do you think? Just give a thought. Money versus currency, is both the same or both different? You'll be surprised by knowing this. I mean, I know some of you would be knowing it. They'll be really smart on that. But most of it, they would think that money and currency are the same. Money is actually a store of value. And it is something which people accept for the exchange of goods and services that you do. And like this, and the example of money would be like a gold, silver, copper, brass. And this is the future. And this is, if you go like 100, 200 years back, these were the only things that was used as, considered as money. It is a store of value. I mean, it is a real value. I mean, it is a real a thing that really holds a value. Now come to 1972, or post-1972, come to these last 50 years. You got something called currency. And currency is only, again, a medium of exchange. It has actually zero value. And it has no natural value, or it doesn't have any intrinsic value. So you'll be surprised and amazed. Money is different from currency. Currency is only a medium of exchange. It doesn't hold any value. You take the 2,000 rupees note and you turn the pieces. That's it. You lose your money. But if you have a gold and even you do anything with that, it's going to still have the value. Even if the gold is broken down into small pieces, it still has value. So value is intact. So the examples of currency is your regular fiat currencies like the dollar, the rupee, the yuan, and the euro, pounds. These are all the fiat currencies. So you need to understand this very clearly going forward, that when you do something, you need to store, to put something, buy something valuable, put your money in valuable things, not having it as a currency. So currency will actually lose its value, and currency has lost value to zero. Yes, it is important to understand the difference. The currency has lost value to zero. Previously, I mean, in 17th century, 18th century, the current US dollars were actually backed by gold. And you could actually take that currency which you had, this $100 currency which you have, you could go to the bank and exchange for the $100 value of gold. So the currency was actually backed by the real value, which is the money, which is the dollar. Since they were not able to take, people backed by gold. So since they are not able to take gold everywhere, and it is very, if I need a very small value, I'll have to cut it across. So this became difficult. So that is why they came out with something called currency, so that if I have my gold, I'll go and deposit with the banker. He will issue me currencies, which is the dollar notes. And these are like, and the gold is kept in the treasury to avoid any theft. Now come to 1972. Now what has happened is, you've been taken that dollar note which was backed by dollar, which was backed by gold, and you're handed over with something called a $100 note, but it's a currency. It is not backed by any gold. Of course, it's a legal tender for all debts, as it says in the $100 note. It's a fiat currency. It is backed with no real asset, and it is issued against debt. All these things involve more deeper thought, but I will not go into it. But I'm just going to highlight the difference between money and currency. If you get it right, money initially when the currency notes were issued, they were backed by gold. But currently, these currencies which we have, even in India, it is not backed by any gold. So money is actually, you need to understand that the purchasing power. I mean, there's something called purchasing power. $100 rupees which I have today will be worth lesser than its value which is today than if I take it 5 years down. So this is the purchasing power of any currency. If I had a 1,000 rupees note 10 years back, which we saw in the first slide, and the value of 10 years later, the purchasing power reduced because I'm not able to buy 100 rupees. I'm not going to be able to buy the same amount of gold. So there's a reducing the purchasing power of the currency. So this will be a good example. The price of gold in 1964 was actually 63.25. I mean, for every 63 rupees 25 paisa, you could buy 10 gram of gold. And come today, 2022, you know what the prices are. I mean, today it's like 59,000 per gram. So had you had 63 rupees just with you, doing nothing, and come to 2022, you would not be able to buy the same amount of gold which you were able to buy in 1964. So what does it talk about the currency? The currency is depreciating. It loses its purchasing power. And due to some reasons why it loses its purchasing power. We need to understand all this. See, the idea being to make you aware is you need to understand the nitty-gritty of how the currency and money works, because only then you will be about the game in the finance. These things may or may not be taught in the regular course of our course in BBA or any other course, but these are understood. I mean, these are actually kept secret from everyone. Only people, because they don't want you to know it. Because if you know it, you will actually mimic the top people. So the idea is these things are all kept hidden from the larger public. But my goal over here is to make you aware of the two differences and to make you aware of how we can handle things with production and consumption. So in a CAGR is you are all BBA students, so you'll be knowing it's compounded annual growth return. So the gold, having 10 grams of gold in N64 had given me a 10.2% CAGR. But if I take from 1971, it has given me a 11.8% CAGR. So which is probably a good growth rate for when you see investments. It's a good growth rate. 12% CAGR is a very good growth rate. Now understand the same thing. I'm inversing this. I'm just inversing it. Had you had 1 lakh cash of what today in your bank or in your locker or in your home, what would be value or what will be purchasing power of that currency down the line in the next couple of years? So you can see how the money loses its value. And this, given the fact that inflation plays a most important role. See, 8% inflation. Inflation is your enemy. Inflation, I'm going to talk about next part of the inflation, how inflation hurts your purchasing power. So this is like 1 lakh you had, and 23 worth 65,000, and you can see how the value is reduced to 5,400. That means what this means is what amount of worth of 1 lakh you can buy today, you're only able to buy for 5,000 in 2023. So that's the amount of power which you're losing. For 5,000 today, if you buy, say, today if you're buying, say, Chennai to Bombay, a flight ticket, so that would cost around like 5,400 today. So that will cost 1 lakh rupee worth in future. So that's the amount of purchasing power which money is losing over the period of years. So I want you to understand all these things about what is this. So is it just us, or is it the rupee is doing it, or is it any other currency is doing it? See, remember, this is not just rupee. Every other currency depreciates the same way because it's all fiat currencies. So fiat currencies would depreciate in value going forward. So it is the inherent behavior of this fiat currencies. You can see this is how the dollar, which was worth $100 in 1913, is only worth like a couple of $1 or $2 today in today's dollar terms. This after all the crisis that has gone by, after so many recessions, after so many crises. This is the $100 of 1913 is worth $3 or $2 for today. So that's how you lose your purchasing power. So this is not just our currency. This is actually, if you see, this has happened throughout the fiat currencies. And now we need to understand the difference between how this purchasing power, what affects the purchasing power. See, purchasing power, you're telling me, but what affects it? It's the interest rate and the inflation. See, now before going forward, when you enter the real world, always try to know that even if you're not reading any kinds of economic times or business standards, just know one thing: just track inflation. Your only goal should be that to track inflation. Inflation is 2 points: CPI and WPI, consumer inflation and wholesale price inflation. So if you track these two things, I think the more would be the consumer price index. So if you just track the CPI, you would actually know where the market is heading, what kind of interest rates you will be getting in banks. So just to keep a track on inflation rate, that's the most important thing. Today, our inflation has come down to less than 6%. We were there at 7.5% earlier. So the most important thing is to keep a track on inflation. Why am I talking about inflation? Because if the easiest way to beat this inflation is going to eat your money. It's going to eat up. It's like a white ant. Termite. It's going to eat up your money if you keep this money at home, and inflation is 7 to 8%. So you're losing the purchasing power by 7 to 8% each year on year. That's how inflation is eating like a termite. So now the easiest way, without any using of the application of mind, the best way to beat the inflation is having a fixed deposit. So if you have two options, your interest rate is how. Now this is just one point I want to show you. See, option one gives you 8.5% interest rate. The other one gives, and inflation is 9%. And option two, you have 6% interest rate, but the inflation rate is 5.8%. In which option would you earn more money? I mean, your purchasing power would actually be secured. I know you'll be thinking like 8.5%, why not I go for 8.5%? But the thing is, for 8.5%, the given inflation is 9%. So you'll actually be losing money in the first option, and you'll actually be making more money, or your purchasing power, you're safeguarding purchasing power in option number two. So that's the power of, these are the actual returns. So that's the power of knowing. Sorry? So that's the power of knowing the inflation along with the interest rate. Now at some countries, the inflation rate is so high that they were spiraling out of control. Have you heard about the starving billionaires of Zimbabwe? Yeah, they had this $1 billion currency in Zimbabwe. They had to issue a $1 billion note in Zimbabwe, and they were starving. They were still starving. They are not billionaires in terms of. They may be billionaires in terms of currency, but they're not billionaires in terms of the value, because this is the evil of inflation. Hyperinflation would eat your valuation of the currency every day and very soon. So this much of amount, this pic actually depicts the same thing. This much of amount was required to just buy a loaf of bread on that day. And tomorrow it would need 30% more if the inflation is spiraling out of control. So this happened in Zimbabwe a couple of years back. And this is the highest ever note printed in recent history. It's a $10 trillion note. And as Voltaire says, at the end, fiat money returns to its intrinsic value, which is zero. Having a $1 trillion note is equivalent to having nothing. So that is what Voltaire said in 1770, that at the end, the fiat currency will return to its intrinsic value, which is a zero. Now there are a lot of other countries which saw hyperinflation. Rome in 300 AD, China, France, Austria, Bolivia, Brazil, Venezuela. And lately, I mean, Sri Lanka last year, last couple of years had been facing hyperinflation, and currently also they have to tackle hyperinflation. So just tracking the interest rate or just tracking the inflation rate will actually help you to know where you are heading or where your money is heading. So that is the most important point I just want to open up in this first chapter. So money is nothing but a value which is perceived by someone. Money is made by exchanging value or time. More money can be made by solving bigger problems which create value.